Hi, I'm Kenzie. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are just joining, welcome. Today we will be talking about my 26th Blues Clues VHS, Blues Big Band. This VHS includes Blues Big Band and Bedtime Business. First, let's talk about Blues Big Band. This episode starts out with Joe telling the viewer that he and his friends were doing rhythms with instruments in the band. Blues Big Band, I might add. Tickety Talk would play the triangle, and Magenta would play the tambourine. And Joe and the viewer would clap their hands. Then Joe wondered what instrument Blue was going to play in the band. That's when Blue wanted to play Blues Clues, but first Joe had to get rid of the paw print. Before getting his handy-dandy notebook, he sang what side table drawer sang, and so the game Blues Clues has begun. In the kitchen, we see Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper playing the washboard, and Paprika and Cinnamon playing the rattles. After hearing beautiful music from them, the viewer spotted the first clue, which was a lid. After the first clue was found, Joe goes outside to see Periwinkle playing some kind of drum. He made rhythms and we repeated them by clapping our hands. After that, it's mail time. Mailbox comes in playing his flag symbol. In the letter, our friends were listening to some drummers. They even joined in to play too. After saying goodbye, the viewer spotted the second clue, which is beans. After the second clue was found, Blue skidooed into a picture of a piano. Joe did too. This is when we are introduced to Piano. He needed help telling the story about some piglets. Joe, Blue, and the viewer were perfect for the role. They practiced oinking, and the story has begun. The story starts out with a starry night, and the piglets fall asleep. Then they wake up and march to school. The bell rings. They were late for school, so they run. The piglets made it to school just in time, and that's how the story ends. After helping out with the piglet story, Blue and Joe skidoo home. That's when the viewer spotted the third clue, which is an empty can. That's also when Joe realized we had all three clues to figure out what instrument Blue wants to play in the band, and it was time to sit in the thinking chair. It was time to think. We were trying to figure out what instrument Blue wants to play in the band, and our clues were a lid, beans, and an empty can. Joe thought, what if we put the beans in the can and then put the lid on? Then if you shake it, we can hear the beans inside. The viewer guessed correctly that Blue wants to play a maraca in the band. At that point, Joe realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, it was time to make music. First, Periwinkle played a rhythm. Then Blue. Finally, Joe and the viewer. After a fun day of making rhythms, it was time to say so long, but sing just one more song. Now let's talk about the episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot if they want to learn about music and rhythms and stuff. Music is all around us if you just take the time to listen. All in all, it's a good episode. Now let's talk about Bedtime Business. This episode starts out with Joe and Blue putting Boris to bed. Joe mentioned that Boris's favorite part of bedtime is being all tucked in, all comfy and cozy. Then he wondered what Blue's favorite part of bedtime is. That's when Blue wanted to play Blues Clues, but first Joe had to get rid of the paw print. Then he went to get his handy-dandy notebook. It was a notebook that felt like a pillow, so soft and cuddly. And so the game Blues Clues has begun. The viewer spotted the first clue, which is a mirror. After the first clue was found, it was bath time, which is the first order of business. Bedtime business. Blue scrubbed her toes, her nose, and her wrists. Basically, she scrubbed everything. After bath time, it was pajama time. The problem was all the pajamas were all mixed up. We decided to help organize. We helped pick out Tickety Talk's nightcap, Pail's pillow, and Shovel's pajamas. Then Blue and Joe changed into their nighttime clothes. After pajama time, the viewer spotted the second clue, which is a sink. After the second clue was found, it's mail time. Mailbox said he had a letter that just couldn't wait till morning. In the letter, our friends were getting ready for bed themselves. The song Bedtime Business is heard in the background. After saying goodnight, a girl drops a toothbrush out of the letter and Joe grabs it. That's when the viewer spotted the third clue, which is a toothbrush. That's also when Joe realized we had all three clues to figure out what Blue's favorite part of bedtime is. And it was time to sit in the thinking chair, of which Joe was already in. It was time to think. We were trying to figure out what Blue's favorite part of bedtime is, and our clues were a mirror, a sink, and a toothbrush. Joe wondered what if we could do with a toothbrush in front of a sink with a mirror. The viewer guessed correctly that Blue's favorite part of bedtime is brushing her teeth. At that point, Joe realized we just figured out Blue's clues. After the celebratory song, Joe and Blue went to brush their teeth. Slippery Soap joins in too. They do the toothbrush tango. After they brushed, rinsed, and spit, it was time for Blue to go to bed. But first, a bedtime story needed to be read. So Joe read Blue a bedtime story, turned off the light, and wished Blue good night. After a fun evening, Joe wished everyone good night and was time to say so long, but to sing just one more song. Now let's talk about this episode as a whole. I feel like kids can learn a lot if they want to learn about bedtime. Bedtime can be pretty fun if you make it fun. I know my favorite part of bedtime is probably taking a bath, because I love the water ever since I was little. What's your favorite part of bedtime? Let me know if you want to. All in all, it's a good episode. So yeah, that's Blues Big Band. If you would like to play again, just go back to the beginning of this episode. And remember, you can do anything that you want to do. Bye!